Welcome back, everybody. Now that you've created an account and learned the different tools in TinkerCAD, it's time to start using shapes. Now, before we begin, let's just learn the basic mouse controls. Now, don't worry if you have a trackpad. I also cover instructions for that as well. So, if you want to rotate your view like this, instead of using this cube that I said earlier, just hold right click and drag. This applies for the same thing on trackpad. If you want to pan your view, which means left and right, up, down, forward, back, then you want to hold middle mouse button if you're on a mouse. That scroll wheel, you want to hold that down. And if you're on a trackpad, you want to hold shift and right click to pan as well. To zoom, you just want to scroll in, same across mouse and trackpad. Note that wherever your mouse is, that's where it's going to zoom in. And to select stuff, such as let's say I had a cube and a cylinder, instead of clicking both of them to select, you can also just drag, left click and drag, and you'll see this box appear. If these two are in the box, they get selected. Okay, so now for the keyboard. Keyboard also is pretty important in CAD since you can use the arrow keys to move around your objects in case dragging is a little too unprecise. If you hold shift and use the arrow keys, the jumps become much bigger of the movement. Now I have used this on an iPad with a keyboard, and for me, in my experience, shift and the arrow keys actually finely precise movements, which is kind of weird. See what works for you. Now you could see here these little points. These are how you manipulate the object. So you can press and hold and drag these around. But if you press shift, you scale them proportionally, all evenly. Now this next one differs on the operating system. If you are on a Mac, you want to press and hold Option and then drag so that you can scale from the center, as you can see. If you're on Windows or a different operating system, I am sorry, I do not know which key you need to press, but try them and don't worry if it doesn't work. I'm sure it will, but if it doesn't work, this is just an easier way of scaling. This is not critical to what you're making, so that's all right. Now, if you want to multi-select, but without using this method, then you can just press and hold shift and just keep selecting. I prefer this because it's much more precise. You don't have to like think, how am I going to make this box so that it fills what I need? Especially when there's other things around that you don't want selected. And plus to zoom in and minus to zoom out. Okay, so now let's take a look at the shapes. So these are the shapes you're probably going to be working with the most, especially the cube and the cylinder. We also have this round roof, as they call it. This is more like a semicircle. We even have some text here. And these two are the interesting ones to say. We'll come back to those. So over here, you can look at the shapes library. So you can click on letters and numbers, and you get a bunch of letters and numbers. You can also go to hardware and look, have these very interesting designs, like these ball clips, I think. Oh, sockets. Everyday objects. There's a lot of stuff that you can use. So for now, let's just stick to basic shapes. And now the scribble and the sketch. So if you drag the scribble onto the work plane, something interesting happens. You go into this drawing phase. So you can just draw whatever you want. And you can see on the top right, there's a preview of how that's going to look like. I personally don't use this because like it's not as precise. Maybe if you wanted like an artificial like glop, maybe that works for you. Maybe you just want a dot. Maybe that also works for you. But me personally, I don't use this. The other tools down here are erase. So you kind of just have to select what you want to erase. That gets erased. This is like a, a really big select. So if I let go right now, you'll see I made this shape. So I don't know how to describe this. Make what you want. And there's also an eraser version of this for, I guess, big erases. Then when you're done, you can click this done button here. And if you don't have anything, you just get this shape. Maybe you want this shape. Now, the sketch tool. So this is basically like line by line drawing. So if I click here and drag, yeah, I don't even need to like press the left mouse button. I just move my mouse. Then you can see this line appears and it tells me how long it is. This is in millimeters, by the way. It should be millimeters by default. If you changed it to inches in the settings, then it's inches. You can click to confirm, and there's a line. And a second line starts to be drawn. Maybe here, then maybe one here, and connect it all around, and we have a polygon. So maybe you want to create custom shapes. This is perfect for that. Um, you can also, I'm pretty sure, yeah, manipulate the shape or start drawing a new one. This is a curve. So if I press here, right now it's straight, but if I click and drag, you can see that it becomes a curve. And then that curve is copied to this next one. So I can make it back. It's like a water droplet. And once you're done, you can just click on Finish Sketch and you're good to go. If you want to learn more, there's this green button called Sketch Features. So they also explain a little bit about the sketch tools. You can also look at that. So I'm just going to click Finish Sketch. And there's our stuff. I'm going to get rid of that by hitting the delete key. Okay, a shape has three axes you can transform it in. So what I mean by that is if I select this, hover over it, then you can see I get this number on the side. Click on it so that I don't have to hover over it. I can change this number to whatever I want. Right now it's 20 millimeters. Maybe I want it to be 50. You can also just hold and drag this as well. This works for these corners as well. That gets both axes. There's also, if you want to adjust the height, this top one over here. You can see that. And you can also raise the object by this triangle up here. It's cone-like shape. Usually it should be at the top, but if it's not, check the bottom. So in this case, right there, it might be a little hard to see, but that's the cone right there. It's the triangle. So it's at the bottom. You can also rotate an object on the three axes. So click and drag. So right now this only goes in, I think, 22.5 increments. If you want more fine, precise movements, click it and then drag outwards. So now you'll see you get into the 1 degree movements. You can also do this for this axis as well. And this one down here. If you click it, you can also just change it here, maybe like 30 degrees. There you go. Just gonna set that back. So the thing with TinkerCAD, I'm not sure why they do this, but if you, let's say, rotate, let's say 35 degrees, and now you click out. When you click back in, this number reads 0 now. So if you want to go back, you can obviously hit the undo button, but in this case, you want to go negative 35 degrees. So that way you're back. I'm not sure why they do this, but just so you know. So each shape may or may not have special parameters. So you could see I can adjust this cube's radius. So if you want some like nice corner rounding, I guess that works well for you. Steps, some of these you'll only see in certain cases, like steps. You'll only be able to see that if you add a radius. This is basically how detailed is that radius going to be. So if I zoom in a little bit, right there, so you can see there's these creases. So if I turn this down, there is no crease. There's just this one over here. If I turn it up, you'll see there's more creases, which means it's just more detailed. So you won't be able to see this without the radius. If I take away the radius, it doesn't matter what the steps is. Now for the cube, I'm not sure why they include the length here, the width here, and the height here. They don't even sync up with what you set here. So I just recommend changing the length, width, height. Just use these. So much better. So different shapes have, like I said, different parameters. As you can see, the cylinder has a bevel. Also segments and sides. So how many sides, how detailed is that cylinder going to be? All right, now that we're done with the shapes, let's move on to the tools. This first tool that we're going to go over is grouping. So let's take a cube and take a cylinder. Now, right now, these two are independent. But if I select these two and click on group, you could see they both turn orange and they are now in sync. I can click off, click on the cylinder only, and it selects both the cylinder and the cube. They are one object. So I can resize that however I like. I can rotate it and they will rotate together. If you want to ungroup them, just select them and click on ungroup. They will keep the changes you've made to them, but they will be independent again. Now let's say I rotate this 90 degrees and I just move this onto the cube. And when I group this, this could be maybe a peg. that I'm designing. So I would group this and I have a peg. Bring this up. And if I want to resize, I'll just drag this. That way I don't have to resize the cube and the cylinder. I can resize them both at the same time. So you might be wondering what these two are. They look like cubes and cylinders, but they're like grayed out. So this is a hole variant. So it's best if I show you. If I bring this into the circle, sorry, cube, then I can select both of them. And when I hit group, look at that. This cube has a cutout of the portion of the cylinder I inserted into it. So this is how you basically make holes in TinkerCAD. And you can do this with any object. If I take this pyramid, for example, click hole here, maybe rotate this, put that there. Now when I select and group, look at that. And if I want to get rid of that, ungroup, and then I have to ungroup again to get the cylinder. This next tool is the Align tool. So you need to select two items, click on Aligned, and you'll see these dots come up. These dots are basically telling you how to align them. So if you hover, you can see a preview. So let's say I want them to be exactly in the center. So I'll click on this button to center them on this axis, then click on this button to center them on this axis. And you can see they're perfectly in the center. Now the reason it's just glitching out like that is because the height of these objects are exactly the same. So TinkerCAD doesn't know which one to render, so it's just rendering both, which is why you're getting this glitchy pattern. If I just raise the height, the cylinder, it's all good. Now the mirror tool, which is this next one, mirrors an object. This one you can have at least one object selected, and these arrows come up on how you want to mirror. So if I click this one, it doesn't really do anything. It is doing something. It is mirroring it on this axis, but since this heart shape is symmetrical on this axis, it's not being mirrored. But if I select this axis, look at that. It's mirrored. You can click it again, put it back to normal. Now, cruise. Cruise is just another way to move the object, but when you let go, you get this green box, which is just a work plane, shaped work plane. You can see that's why this is selected. So work planes is just this work plane right here, except you've made a mini version of it right below the cylinder. Once you deselect, it goes away. So work planes are really useful because let's say I go onto cruise and I put it on its side. What this has done is I can now adjust the cylinder's properties based on this green work plane. If I deselect, it is now on the blue work plane. So now you can see the height is based on the blue. So when you're working with objects that are in a different orientation, you should have a work plane beneath them. That way you can adjust them based on how you would do it on the blue work plane. If you want to get that work plane black, that's our next button, shape work plane. Just get it back like that. And then this final button, drop down to the work plane. Now, let's say I wanted to do that same thing, but with multiple cylinders. So with one cylinder, I could click on Cruise, bring it maybe over here, and I have my work plane. I can adjust as I need. Maybe I want to make it smaller here. So it would be tedious to just click here, then drag here, and then once you deselect, it's gone. Maybe you want to do that, but there's a better tool, work plane tool. You want to click this, and you'll see this blue square. If you click on the side that you want the work plane to be, it'll turn orange. Click that, and now that is your main work plane. So now let's say you bring in a cylinder. You can see now it acts like that blue work plane is now here. So you can just put it here. And this work plane now acts like it's on its side. You can see I'm moving it back and forth with the up and down tool. You can see the dimension tools are on the wrong side. If you want to go back, click this, make sure it's blue, and you're back to the main work plane. So now let's say you have a complex design. I just created something and you want to measure stuff. You'll click on this ruler icon and place it wherever you want. I'm going to place mine right at the corner. I think it's better because you get precise readings with this button that we'll get to. And now if you click on an object, you'll see numbers. You'll see dimensions of that object. So you might be thinking, well, okay, I'll just get rid of the ruler and click on the object. There you go, the same dimensions. What's the difference? The difference is that when you select, let's say, this object, you get these green measurements. So what does that mean? Well, these green measurements, look at that, are telling you how high up the object is. And now obviously you could just measure this, but let's say you wanted it at a glance. You have all your information right here. Now this use midpoint button, as you can see, 8.36, that is this height. And this is 59 up. So these two lines are exactly the same. If I click on this use midpoint, you can see this goes up to the midpoint of this dimension. So maybe you wanted to use it for some reason. There you go. To get rid of your ruler, just click on Dismiss Ruler. This last tool is the Note tool. You can click on the note, place it anywhere, and just write whatever you want. You can click this minus button to minimize it, and now you have a note there. Click it to see what it says, click into it, and then click on this trash can, and you get rid of it. Nice work. Now that you've learned the tools, it's time to begin our mystery project. See you in part 4.